Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCloud Studios. Visit online at soundcloudstudios.com for all your needs, and brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Moses the Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We're here with an amazing gentleman who is a singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist from Wellington, New Zealand, and currently in Australia. His songs have been featured on a number of programs like Amateur Night, Beat, Combat Hospital, and also performed at South by Southwest in Austin, headlined at the Whiskey A Go Go. He also has some a brand new album out, which is called We Can Win, and will be featuring some of the releases. We'll talk about it. He also included Hello People, Good Year, Free at Last, and more. Live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Melbourne, Australia. From the land of Down Under, the multi-talented singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist from Wellington, New Zealand, now in Melbourne, ladies and gentlemen, the member of Royce, Royce. Ross, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. It's really good to be on your show, and it's about midday here in Melbourne, Australia. So good to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on board as well, too, from the other side of the pond, they say. So you're a singer, songwriter, yes, multi-instrumentalist from Wellington. Your songs have been featured on a number of shows and networks, including Amateur Night, Beat, Combat Hospital. You also performed at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. You headlined at the Whiskey A Go Go in Los Angeles. You also had some releases on Spotify, YouTube, and all the streaming platforms with Hello People, Good Year, Free at Last. And also it's Christmas time as well, too, since we are talking close on Christmas, but we can celebrate Christmas 365 days we want. And we also have a new album, We Can Win, featuring Life Worth Living, Keep Going, and Mrs. Vane. Will play a couple of tracks at the end of the audio version of the program. And before getting to all that, Ross, tell us how I first got started.
What's that? Well, yeah, well, about the first song, Life Worth Living. It's just a real working class song about trying to break out of the 9 to 5. I used to work in factories. The first one.
Oh, really? So that's how you got started, or is this like, how'd you get started in the business? Before we talk about Life Worth Living, it's like how'd you first get started?
I started playing drums when I was about 10 years old. So the drums is my first instrument, and I did a few years of lessons, and then just tapped away on the drums for a little while, sort of here and there, until I was 17, and then I bought a guitar and electric guitar, and started composing as well as drumming. But drums is my first instrument, so I'm a bit of a I don't know, a Phil Collins or a Don Henley type. Hopefully. And my dad could sing, so I was lucky enough to have reasonable vocals, so I could combine those talents along with my drumming to write and record. And I started demoing my first songs when I was about 19.
Mm-hmm.
Some original songs in Wellington, New Zealand. And also playing in a few bands as a drummer. I love my drums and all the great artists, especially rock based mainly music. So I listen to everything really, from orchestral through to punk. Many influences in my life musically.
Mm-hmm. And what was that one precise moment that simply influenced you into what you're doing for the rest of your career?
Well, everything is from a drumming perspective. There's a few moments, like when my dad used to have this Neil Diamond record, and I loved Hot August Night, and I loved the drumming in that. That sort of was one of my favorite early sort of drumming. But I used to listen to a lot of soul and mainly funk music. I didn't get into rock music until I was about 17 or 18, when I discovered the Beatles and then Led Zeppelin. So those sort of the whole 60s hard rock thing. I loved the drumming from that, like John Bonham and And then when I was about 20, I was in a fusion band, and they introduced me to some fusion bands like Yes, King Crimson, Mahavishnu Orchestra. So there was always good drummers and arrangements in those songs. So when I write songs, I try to have a bit of the interesting arrangements, not just straight ahead rock. So there are orchestral moments in my music at times, influenced by those bands. So yeah, and I've written all the songs on the latest release, We Can Win. So
okay, all right,
yes,
that sounds rather interesting. And who are you still my other favorite drummers and other singers, songwriters, musicians growing up? Who are some of my other favorites?
yeah. So when I was younger, it was more the we didn't really listen to Beatles, more the Elvis, Elvis, and my dad. Via my dad, Neil Diamond, the Carpenters, ABBA. So it's more pop, the Jackson 5, I think. And then it was all rock from about when I was 17. My uncle had all the Beatles collection, so I started listening to that, and I couldn't believe how many great songs they had. And then I got into Led Zeppelin via another friend at a party. They put on Led Zeppelin 4, and I was blown away by the power of that music, and the drumming, and so yeah, a lot of 60s influences, but also 90s influences, like Nirvana and Soundgarden and the Chili Peppers. I think that was a great era as well. So yeah, I listen to everything. Mozart to the Sex Pistols. Yeah.
I was just going to mention that part too, and I think the drummer you're talking about is Ron Tutton. I think he was also with Elvis Presley as well too. We had that album Hot August Night, and he's like one of the best drummers out there too. I mean, just totally amazing in just way he does drums. And of all the drummers you talked about, we talked about John Bonham, Phil Collins, and everything else. Who would you say is your most favorite drummer, and why?
It would be John Bonham, because of the power of his playing. Also, his timekeeping is brilliant, and his tuning of his drum set. He knew how to tune a drum set. That sound, the big sound they got from Led Zeppelin 4. He helped arrange the mics with the producer, the engineer, and to get that big sound, he was aware of the sound he wanted, and once he got it, he stuck with it. Also, as playing on the first album, Led Zeppelin 1, you can hear his foot, right foot, a song called Good Times, Bad Times. It's just amazing control so in his playing. So he'd probably be my favourite, and some other drummers I like are like Stuart Copeland from The Police. He's very creative, and Billy Cobham from the Mahavishnu Orchestra. I'm not sure if you're aware of that band.
I'm aware of
them. They were
yes.
around in the early 70s. It was just full on fusion, and he was amazing. And then you got, say, session drummers like Steve Gadd. I really appreciate. He's played in a lot of recordings, mainly big hits in the 70s. We played with Paul Simon and Steely Dan. So yeah, I appreciate any creative drummer.
Mm-hmm. And how about some of the modern drummers? Who are your favorites? The modern ones.
From the modern, well, I think Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's very tight player, powerful player. It's tough sometimes when you hear on the radio. You don't know if it's a real drummer or if it's been programmed sometimes. So I'm a bit out of the loop with the guys around now. I know that. Well, I'm impressed with some of Bruno Mars' music and the drummer. And I think Bruno Mars actually plays drums
He
some
does,
of
yeah,
those
and
tracks.
he does, and I think I watched one of his videos, and I think when he was on the Super Bowl, he was on the double bass and singing away, and I
Oh
thought, "Oh
man.
my god, the guy is so talented." It's just like he's gone unappreciated lately as well too. And I watch him like that guy is so multi-talented. If you can sing and do a double bass, I mean, you got something special.
It's very hard to do.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and I mean that had to be something too. But of course, you've been on drums yourself. You also got your own music, and you also been in some programs as well too. We'll get to that along with We Can Win. But first, you listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SonicWeb Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? SonicWeb Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today 1 800 303 3960. That's 1 800 303 3960 or email to support at sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international war ring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love will be your first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews, and Eve 11 enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Jonah Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com on over 40 podcast platforms, heard in over 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, Apple Music. Also heard on the HamiltonRadio.net every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Also on BitChute, Rumble, and a few networks and platforms coming soon. Take the Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok today. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also T-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today. I'll support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Make sure you do so today. We're here with singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist from Wellington, New Zealand, now living in Melbourne, Australia, Royce of the band Royce here on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we talk about your music featuring We Can Win, your latest release on Spectra Records, your songs have been featured on Amateur Night, Beats, Combat Hospital. You performed at South by Southwest, headlined at the Whiskey a Go-Go. And, tell us about some of the songs and some of the shows you've been on, and also some of the networks as well, too. I mean, you've had like a good amount of exposure in those.
Yes, I've I've been to the US twice, done a bit of touring there. I took a band there and we performed at the Whiskey a Go-Go with a few other bands. That was for my last release. It was a Life Worth Living album, and through that, I've managed to get some of my music placed on US movies and US television, mainly the songs Mrs. Vane and Life Worth Living. So, bit by bit, as an independent artist, I've been able to work my way into the industry. It's a good way to get exposure through movies and TV as another avenue, as well as a bit of touring and live gigging when you're an independent artist. So there's many ways to make it rather than signing to a major, which can be done, but you need to work your way up. So you got to show that you're really happening. That's why I think Spectra took me on. So I'm working away, always working hard on getting my music to all the different bigger audiences all the time, and hopefully some more movies and TV placements will come through next year, and always writing new material. Yeah. So with the latest release, We Can Win. That was partially recorded in New Zealand and also in Australia. and I used 3 different producers actually. So it's an eclectic mix of mainly rock-based songs, but hopefully with a powerful, positive message. That's why it's sort of we can win. It's like humanity can overcome. We can win. So I'll try to keep it positive, but still rock it out. Some good rockers on there.
No, now what inspired you to create "We Can Win" and the theme behind it?
Yes, well, it's like people overcoming adversity and winning in their lives, I suppose, or all of us getting together and doing positive things for the planet and the world. And part of it was from some of the songs where I'm trying to. I used to work, as I said, in factories, so I was trying to make something almost. I used to save money and spend all my money on recording, and so I've done. It's kind of some working class songs on there for the hardworking working class people around the world. Like Life Worth Living and We Can Win, the theme song. So. It's an album for everyone. I try to, watch the news or just meet people. We just try to write songs that everyone can relate to and enjoy and keep a rock based sort of element. I like to rock a bit. So I think there's a ballad on there, a ballad or 2 on the album. So I've got my tender moments and. It's a bit of everything on that album, bit of orchestral songs. So I hope everyone digs it.
Well, I'm sure they do too. We'll be playing "Life Worth Living" after the audio version of the Mike Wagner Show for those who want to listen to it. And before we talk about "Keep Going On," you also had "Hello People," "Good Year," "Free at Last," and it's Christmas time. And tell us about those songs, what inspired you to write them, and of course, if there's any other music out there, feel free to talk about it as well.
Sure. Some of the songs you mentioned, there was the Life Worth Living album that had Good Year on it. That's a country rock song. Trevor Reading was the producer on that, and he played guitar and bass. He's a very talented producer. I played the drums, did all the vocals. The song "Free at Last" actually is a drum solo. Yeah, so it's on the end of the album. I had to have a drum solo in there. That album, or the CD version, has 13 tracks on it, and it's got a song called "Hello People" Part 1, Part 2. So that's where the prog rock comes into it. The album opens with that song, and then in the middle of the album, it comes back with a sort of a Part 2 reprise. With lots of big drum sounds and crowd noises and things like that, explosions. From that album, I actually got a bit of airplay in New Zealand on the main alternative radio station called Kiwi FM. They played a few of the songs off that album, mainly Mrs. Vane and a song called Mixed Up World, actually. So the song "Mixed Up World" I actually wrote on keyboards, and that's got a real sort of Who vibe to it. It's lots of sort of a chaotic punk rock song. So that was quite popular in New Zealand. And Mrs. Vane has sort of been a song that's been one of my most successful songs, having been featured on US movies and radio. And that song's sort of a heavy rock song, a raunchy kind of number about a 21st century cyber woman or something like that. It's kind of cool, and it's my first foray into rap. So there's a bit of rap at the end of that. I was listening to Eminem at the time, I think. Eminem's a bit of an influence in that regard. So there's a bit of rap at the end of that song. So I've done it all: bit of hip hop, bit of rock, and and lots of drumming, of course, in my songs.
And what do you plan to conquer next when it comes to formats and everything? You talked about country, a little bit of hip hop and all that. So, what do you plan to conquer next?
Well, I'd like to do an orchestral a piece of music or an album, um, but I'd need, I'd like to spend like 3 or 4 months in the studio just working on an album with an orchestra, things like that. I've got a lot of ideas. It's really a budget thing, but I do have songs that are uh, uh, half written, ideas, something like a Sergeant Pepper's or a song like Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, songs like that with piano. I've been writing a lot of songs on keyboard, so I'm trying to make pushing myself to write more interesting arrangements with different chords rather than just major chords. A lot of diminished chords and lots of vocals. So I'd like to bring in a choir. I'd like to have an orchestra. So I'm making an epic sort of album with a theme to it. Pink Floyd's another big influence. So, The Dark Side of the Moon, that sort of album, something powerful and trippy, as it were. So that's a big aim. I've got a few songs in the kettle in the background there that I want to do, but I want to do them properly.
Okay.
So that's something I'd love to do, and also maybe a progressive rock album where it's a bit more with other top progressive players, where it's a bit more odd time signatures and things like that. From a drumming perspective, I'd like to do that. I listen to a bit of Frank Zappa as well. So,
yes, one of my favorites too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I listen to Frank Zappa as far as his arrangements and things. So I enjoy. It's a real challenging type music rather than just playing 4/4 type music on the drums. It can get after a while a bit boring. So I try to mix it up a bit.
And and how many songs have you done on the 5/4? There's been a lot of songs done in 5/4 and considered very challenging. And of course, Steve Miller Band has done it, and I think a couple others too. But most notably, you just go into jazz, like with the Dave Brubeck Take 5, and a lot of the songs were done in 5/4.
Yes, well, I've only heard one or two, I've only had the song Take 5. I need to buy a Dave Brubeck album and have a listen to that. I'm glad you've put me on to that. I didn't realize that a lot of the songs are in 5/4. But,
That's why they call it Take 5. It's done in 5/4, and it's like that's one of the most impressive feats. 5/4. That's a whole thing. It's just like that's one of the most celebrated albums.
yes, it's wonderful song, that one. Yeah, I listen to a bit of jazz, a bit of Miles Davis. But I haven't really. I'm not a full-on jazz head, but I need to expand my record collection and get into a bit more jazz. If you've got any ideas,
Yes, one Bitches Brew. That is a staple, especially Miles Davis. Bitches Brew.
yes, I don't have that album. I've got Kind of Blue and Sketches from Spain, so that's one I've got to get. And I think Bitches Brew featured John McLaughlin. I'm not sure. He's from the Mahavishnu Orchestra, but anything with John McLaughlin on as a guitarist, I'm into. Yeah, I listen to everything. Not so much mainstream music at the moment. I need to switch to that particular channel because I find a lot of mainstream music at the moment is a bit overproduced. I think it's very production orientated. Whereas, say, in the 90s, it was the music on the radio was fantastic. Everything, even the pop songs, they had a bit of soul to them. A bit of bite. But I think these days we need some sort of change again to bring back the rock, bring back
Mm-hmm.
Real instruments, I suppose. Because a lot of tricks in the studio now, you can get a good drum
Of
sound.
course, auto tune, that's the number one as well, too. So, yeah, bring back the
Yes.
auto tune just coming from here. And of course, you got your music as well, too. We'll talk about Keep Going On from the weekend release with Royce of Royce. We'll get to that in just 1 minute. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios. Visit online at soundclapstudios.com for early needs, and brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international war ring author Mia Molson's You're Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We'll be back with Royce of Royce from We Can't Win, We Can Win after this time. We're back with Royce of the group Royce from New Zealand to Melbourne, Australia, here on the Mike Wagner Show with the release of We Can Win. We are talking about Life Worth Living, Mrs. Vane, and also some releases that have been featured on quite a few programs like Amateur Night, Beats, Combat Hospital, and more. And Keep Going On, that's the number one. And he's also part of Spectra Records as well, too. Tell us more about Keep Going On and what inspired you to write it.
Keep Going On is another positive song for people to, if they're a bit down or a bit struggling in life, to persevere, overcome their hardships. Because we've been through tough times, when you've got no money, you're a struggling musician and down and out. you got to pick yourself up and keep going on. So that's what that song's about. And it was recorded in Wellington, New Zealand. And I played all the instruments on the original demo. Played drums. I usually laid out a rhythm track to a click, and then I put on the headphones and lay down the drums, and I played bass. And then it was mixed and produced in Melbourne by K.O. Sandvik, who's a very good producer, and he redid some of the guitars and the bass, and we just tweaked the drums. So I was really happy with the groove on that song and the vocal. And it's one of my favorites on the album. It's just a feel-good pop rock song. And the video clip was fun to do as well. I don't know if you've seen the video where I'm flying around in the sky with balloons attached to a bicycle.
Nice.
So people like that video clip. So yeah, that's the story behind it. So recorded in New Zealand and mixed in Australia, and it is a feel good song on the album, and yeah, one of my favourites. A real toe tapper. So that's that particular song.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's Mrs. Vane on the album, Life Worth Living. So they're the rock based songs. They were recorded in Australia, in Melbourne, and same process again. I'd pick up I'd work the arrangement at home on an acoustic guitar, and then I'd play the song in the studio with a click track, and then put the headphones on, play the drum track, then lay down the bass, and then usually the producer would lay down the lead guitar work and all that sort of thing, and then I'd do the vocals last. So busy. I'm always busy in the studio. I'm playing a lot of things, and then when I had a band, I sometimes I'm bringing band members to do different parts. So that's how it works, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I record.
And certainly does a great job as well, too. And where can we find all your music at, including the latest releases, Ross?
We can find it on all the digital platforms like Spotify, Apple iTunes, Tidal, Amazon Music, also through my record label, Spectra Music. And yeah, it's all the digital, and also CD Baby as well, Orchard Music. So there's a few different outlets. So it's global. So everyone out there, if you want something that's with a lot of different influences on the album and something uplifting and rocking, then do yourself a favor and get the album.
We will certainly do that. We're here with Royce of Royce from Spectra Records with We Can Win here on the Mike Wagner Show. Ross, just a few more moments here, and we'd love to have you back on as well, too. And what else can we expect from you guys in 2022 and 23 and beyond?
Okay. I'm always writing. I'm writing music today, composing for an album to be released middle of next year, hopefully. I'm hoping to get to the US by the end of next year, if not 24, and do a proper tour. I'm at the moment I'm doing shows in Australia and New Zealand and recording new material next year. I've got every Christmas I release I've got a Christmas EP, so that'll be out soon. It's just I recorded it 2 years ago, but I released it every Christmas.
That's
And I
very
did
nice.
that.
A gift to everybody. So
Yes, and then that does quite well. It's a 5-track EP, and I recorded it at my home studio. So there's a lot of Christmas bells, and so I'll put that out shortly for this Christmas, and working on new songs for a new album to be released next year, and then shows in New Zealand and Australia, and hopefully the US later next year, or going into 2024, where I'll do a proper tour. So all the people fans in the US, just hang in there. I'm getting a lot of requests when am I coming over, but hopefully late 23 going into 24, I'll be over there. So I'm busy with lots of different projects.
all right. We'll certainly check that out and looking forward to hearing more from you, Ross. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Well, there's a few. I think the Beatles, but also a band I used to be in called Thorazine. And that band just an influence on me as far as songwriting. I was just playing drums in that band, but there was 2 songwriters in that band that influenced me, Tom Shilton and Christian Schaefer, and I still keep in touch with those guys, and we're hoping to release some music as well later next year. So they're an influence on me, as well as the mainstream bands like the Beatles and the Led Zeppelin, and but the Beatles were they were daring in their songwriting, and that's why we all love them, because they started off with Love Me Do, but they went through to Sergeant Pepper's, and they pushed themselves to do better. And I think that's what if you're gifted with music, you should always try and push yourself to come up with greater music and all of that thing, rather than just resting on your laurels, releasing the same sort of songs. So probably the Beatles would be my main number one influence if you're talking about a band or an artist. So yeah, that's many influences. You hear it in my music.
And that's one of the many influences that have done a great job as well. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, if you're an independent musician, is to keep your day job. If don't go on the unemployed line, keep your day job, and slowly but surely finance a release, write songs, get together with talented musicians, and find a really good producer or engineer. Sometimes it helps if an engineer can play an instrument they can play a really good guitar or bass. That helps to keep your costs down a bit, rather than getting session musicians in. But save up and do even release a single rather than an album, because an album can be quite expensive, and but the first hit is the hardest one to get. That's what they say. So once you get some sort of momentum with a song, then you can start off with a single, then move on to an album. So just work hard and persevere with composing. That's what I'd suggest to any up and coming musicians.
And certainly great advice indeed as well. We're here with Royce of Royce with We Can Win from Melbourne, Australia, originally from Wellington, New Zealand, here on the Mike Wagner Show, courtesy of Spectra Records. Ross, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. And once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your works?
On my website, which is roycemusic.net, or via Linktree, which is Royce Music on Linktree, Bandcamp, and also all the Apple Music, Spotify, etc. You'll find it all via Spectra Music. So it's all over the internet. You'll find it somewhere.
We will certainly check that out. Once again, Ross, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love having you back. We wish you all the best. And Ross, you definitely have a great future ahead of you. Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Mike.